Robert Plank Show, episode 310. Become an online superhero by creating a socially focused business with Leon J. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the show. We're joined today by Leon J from leonj.info, and he helps entrepreneurs build purpose-based businesses for a better life and a better world. So Mr. Leon, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Robert. Pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here, and we met 6 years ago in Thailand. And when I first saw you, you had this product called Fusion HQ, and you demonstrated it in front of this crowd. And as far as I know, and I could be wrong, but as far as I know, you were the first person to show like a piece of funnel software that actually displays an entire funnel like in diagram form with like boxes and arrows. So am I right there in that, were you the first one to make that kind of diagram, and did everyone else copy you, or was that just kind of a common thing?
No, absolutely. No, we were the way ahead by a good, I think, 2 years or more for doing the drag and drop interface for building sales funnels. We were also the first to develop the drag and drop email funnel too, and a variety of different email marketing tools. So yeah, we had a lot of fun in the marketing world with that platform.
Awesome. So I'm sure we'll get to lots of fun and cutting edge stuff. So is Fusion HQ your focus now, or are there new things like this email funnel stuff, or like what is sort of your primary focus these days?
Yeah, so I took a bit of a detour away from Fusion HQ to begin to focus about 2 years ago now on my latest book, which is How to Become a Superhero, Build a Better Business, and Help Save the World. And in writing that book, it made me refocus my priorities in life. And so since then, I've been trying to spend my time more wisely in making a positive impact and assisting other business owners to become more socially and environmentally sustainable in the way that they run and operate their businesses.
Awesome. So what does that entail exactly?
Well, you've heard of the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, and recycle. And I think they're a good starting point. But I also believe that we can add a 4th R, which is restore. And essentially looking at ways that we can minimize the impact of businesses on the environment and use them as a tool for enhancing society in general. The way I see business is that essentially business is a tool that provides value to communities. And unfortunately, particularly in the IM space, it's been seen increasingly as a tool for creating personal wealth. And I think there's nothing wrong in creating personal wealth from business, but that should be the sort of like the side result, not the primary purpose or focus of a business.
Right, that makes a lot of sense, and I mean, we've both seen a lot of businesses where definitely they're very nearsighted and just kind of about the churn and burn and not really having any kind of like a life goal or a real purpose or anything really to say, just kind of cranking away and making money, which, I mean, it's a good place to start, but it just, after a while, seems like it's kind of hollow, there's not much of a fulfillment, so this thing sort of makes a lot of sense. So reduce, reuse, recycle, and restore. And so, I mean, what does that mean exactly? Does that mean like we should have our businesses and have a cause out of the gate, or donate like a certain percentage, or like, I mean, how does this sort of idea of giving back fit into the making money piece?
Yeah, okay. So just to kind of prove the concept, I started a small business on the side, as it were, just to illustrate these kind of key points. And that's just getting launched actually next week. We've got the product just finished off the shelf, as it were, or off the production line, should I say. And that's called Zen Bags, and zenbags.org for anybody who wants to check it out. Now, Zen Bags use the concept that we need to reduce plastic bags. And so we're looking for a very functional, practical alternative to the plastic shopping bag so that we can reduce our dependency on oil and reduce the amount of waste that we're creating. And it does that by creating a plastic bag that's made out of recycled plastic bottles. So it's made from recycled material. It itself can be recycled. So that means it has a future after its life expectancy has reached its end. It can be reused itself, so it is looking at the reuse concept. And essentially, the other main thing that you need to look at is this restoration. And so we decided that what we would do is to donate 10% of all the company profits to restoring and protecting the oceans, as well as planting one tree for every bag bought. And so, of course, this helps offset all of the carbon, but each tree that's planted actually provides food and income for poor rural farmers in Africa. So you see, you're giving back to society, you're giving back to the environment, you're helping restore and protect the oceans, which of course have suffered greatly from the hands of plastic bags, and you're really embracing this reducing, reusing, and recycling concept. So the entire business is modeled around that. And the really cool thing about this, of course, is it gives you a marketing edge. And I think this is the main thing that a lot of people forget with social media. A lot of people talk about social media, social media. How do you make things viral? I think really you've got to have a message. You've got to have a purpose, right? If you want people to share your ideas, if you want people to share your product or service, you've got to be able to have something more than my business exists to make me money, right? If that's your purpose in business, who gives a damn, right? Who's going to go out there and shout from the rooftops? How are you going to get press releases? How are you going to get media coverage? How are you going to get people sharing that in social media? It's just not going to happen. And so a lot of people they look at all of the strategy in, yes, submit a press release, go contact the local newspapers, put out videos on YouTube and all of this. But what they completely miss is the very beginning is, so who cares? Why do people care about any of this? And if your business doesn't embody a very strong core message of why should people care, then people won't care. It's as simple as that. One really great example of this that I love is a company from New Zealand called EcoStore. Now, I was actually just chatting to the founder of EcoStore the other day, a guy by the name of Malcolm Rands. And, he started this back in 93, I believe it was. And essentially, he created a company that provides cleaning products. Now, take a laundry powder. The laundry powder industry is currently owned by basically a monopoly. Ariel, Persil, etc., they're all made by the same company. So he is some hippie, basically, from the far north of New Zealand, with a $30,000 loan from his brother, going up against $1 billion monopoly. What chance do you think he's got?
Not much.
Not much, right? Except for he does. Because he's actually turned that company into a multinational. They're now into the US, they're across Australia, into Singapore, across obviously New Zealand, and starting to reach around the world. And the reason he was able to achieve all of this was because he created a company that cared. He created a product that was environmentally sustainable, one that protected the health of the user. So it didn't use any nasty chemicals. It used only the highest quality recycled packaging. Now they've just gone out and actually invested into developing a new type of plastic made out of sugarcane that actually locks up carbon. So every product that they produce is essentially a carbon sink. Just this level of forward thinking has given him an edge that means that people actually care. People seek out his product. And I think he expressed it best he said, essentially, if you find a product that can look the same, act the same, and cost the same, but does it in a way that people care, then they will transition very, very easily. If you're if you try, there's a certain margin where people will pay a premium for sustainable products. You see this in the organic industry. Typically, organic food has a premium markup, and not to say that, of course, everybody switches over, but there's a big enough demand for it that it is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And of course, if organic food was exactly the same price, then everybody would pretty much be buying it rather than the current numbers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So it sounds like by having if you can if you can match things like you said on like look and price and function and stuff like that, but you also have this kind of cause attached to it, like well we're gonna provide the same thing, but this is also eco-friendly and stuff like that. Then that's sort of the differentiator. That's the way to get noticed as opposed to everyone else.
Well, yeah, exactly. This is precisely right. I mean, to me, the title for the book, "How to Become a Superhero," actually came out of from another interview that I was doing, and the host asked me, "Who's your favorite superhero?" And I've never been big into comics, so it kind of stumped me, and it was a left field question. And I sat there and I thought about it. I said, I have to say Elon Musk. Now, obviously, in retrospect, I'm not the first person to compare him to a superhero, but the thing that struck me about Elon is that even after he made millions and millions of dollars from the sale of PayPal, he could have just retired and bought a string of islands and whatever. He didn't. He risked every single cent he had to invest into Tesla, into SpaceX, and into Solar City. Solar City, obviously, looking at trying to transform the energy industry. SpaceX, a lot of people don't realize this, but was actually founded to try and save the human race by being able to fund missions to Mars and colonize Mars, which is way out there. But Tesla, obviously is looking to disrupt the transport industry. Therefore, in each of these cases, he's looking to try and save the human species. Now,
Interesting.
tell me if that's not a superhero by definition.
Right. I mean, so much so that Iron Man's based on him, right?
Well, there's a strong correlation between the two. I'm not sure who came first, but essentially, you look at the two, and they're very much identical lives, right? They're these billionaires that have all of this tech industry around them, and they're using their wealth, their power, their influence, their insane intellect to essentially try and assist the human race.
Right.
And
And I mean, Tesla's getting more and more crazy. Like, I mean, now there's like the Hyperloop, and then there's some new thing where he wants to have like underground transportation. Like he just keeps getting
yep,
like bigger and bigger with his goals and dreams.
yeah, exactly. He's blowing out the average person's vision out of the water by a long shot. But what's really cool, and what most people don't realize about Tesla, is you see a lot of the financial analysts, and they're looking at it going, oh, there's a latest Tesla killer coming along, and Elon's not really thinking about the challenge that's going to be provided from Ford or BMW or whoever is producing the latest electric vehicle. What I don't realize is that actually that was Tesla's mission. Tesla's mission wasn't really to make a $1 billion company. That was just a side bonus. Their mission was to disrupt the entire transport industry and make it switch from fossil fuels to electric. And that is exactly what we're seeing happen. So essentially, even if Tesla were to go bust tomorrow, they've succeeded in their goal.
Awesome. So, I mean, since we're talking about all this kind of stuff about like, Elon Musk and like, like switching from only looking to make money to kind of doing more with the world and stuff like that. I mean, did you have kind of a big switch like that? I mean, what happened between, just selling funnel software to kind of more of this like activism stuff?
I've always been relatively alternative in my thinking, I guess. But um, I mean, I was a therapist. I've worked in organic stores. It's not that I haven't had an awareness of things in the past, but they were never really the primary focus. Now, when I wrote one of my previous books, Create, Automate, Accelerate, I developed the framework of the 5 Ps of priority because, as you know, I've spoken at many events around the world, and you've been to the same events, right? And I'm sure you get the same question asked a lot, which is, how do I make money? And this question was so frustrating to me, and I didn't really know why. It was just like, that's the wrong question. Why do you keep asking, how do I make money? You're so money focused. I understand the need for money, but it was still really annoying to me. And then I realized that The reason was that it was the right question just at the wrong time. And so this is where I developed the 5 P's of priority, where essentially, if you ask, what's my purpose? Then you can figure out what's my passion. Then you can figure out who are the people that I need around me. Then you can figure out what is the place that I need to be located to do this. And then you can figure out how do I turn a profit, right? So if you get those questions in the right order, you end up with a very different set of answers than if you start with how do I make money. So I was going to all of these events that were obviously based around how do I make money, and so people were looking at it and going, "Oh, well, I should do, sell T-shirts on through Facebook, or I should do fulfillment through Amazon, or I should create digital information products, or do affiliate marketing, or whatever it might be." And really, these are all just simply models for generating sales. They're the actual kind of profit end, but they lacked the purpose, they lacked the passion, they lacked the people, and they lacked the place to do it. And so it left people with very empty answers, and people who chased those answers at the end, even if they were successful, and many weren't because they gave up, because they would constantly jump. They had no purpose and direction, so they would constantly jump to the next shiny object. Right? And they're constantly chasing this dream of making money. And those that succeeded ended up being left as empty as those that didn't. Because although there's an initial rush about making the money, it gets tiring very quickly. It's just, so what? It becomes so much the same each day, and there's no real purpose behind it. So yeah, this was the development of the framework, and as I was out there teaching this framework as part of the marketing to the previous book, what I realized was that I had to some degree, but not to the degree that I thought I could do, build my lifestyle, my business based around this exact framework. So I decided to go back to the beginning and essentially re-engineer my life, going, well, if I knew what I knew now, what would I actually be doing? And that was a bit of a painful process, but very, very rewarding.
Yeah, it sounds like it, and I imagine that. I mean, the majority of not only people in general, but a majority of entrepreneurs never have that realization of like you said, going back to the purpose to then figure out your passion, and then figure out what people you need, and then where place you need to be, and then in profit. And as you were sort of talking about that sort of that that kind of like live event conference mentality when people are on stage and like selling to a herd and kind of herding people to make money. It's like, well, what does it all kind of mean? And there's that saying of you don't want to be the rich, or what's the point of being the richest person in the graveyard, right?
Right.
And then also, if someone's only chasing money, it's like, well, how much money is enough? And you've probably like been asked this question or seen stuff on Facebook where it's like, well, what would you do if you had $10 million? And like, I always see the answer, and like, people can fill up like $1 million. They can say like, I'll buy this house and this car, and then they don't really know what else to do. They're just like, oh, I'll put the rest in the bank, or I'll buy a bunch of apartments and grow it into more money. It's like, but you didn't even know what to do with that original money. You're going to grow it into 10 times the money. You still don't know. So, I mean, it's clicking on a lot of things. It's making a lot of sense as far as like, a lot of people chase a number just because I guess they've kind of been chasing a number their whole lives, and if they kind of
Right.
stopped and took a second and like stepped back and said, well, what does it all mean? What do I want? It would make a lot more sense. And so when you were kind of sort of realigning things and going back to the beginning and figuring out like your purpose, I mean, what's sort of the thought process there? Like, it's one thing to say, well, figure out a purpose, but if someone has no idea, like, how do they kind of brainstorm that?
Yeah. So I mean, I think there's two questions that I start with, which is what's really important to me, and what do I think is really important about life, and the other is what really annoys me. And I think when you start thinking down those lines, you start realizing what it is that you want to do. And again, it is a bit like that question. Let's say not what would you do if you had $10 million, but what would you do if money didn't exist and it was irrelevant, right? What is it that you would like to change in this world? And I actually went through this process with my 12-year-old daughter just the other day. and she loves tigers, and she's horrified and disgusted that basically tigers are on the brink of extinction in many places. So she decided that she wants to help save the Malaysian tiger, you
Awesome.
know, and so now she's really passionate about this. She's actually got motivated. She wasn't really worried about building a business particularly, but now she's got a purpose that she actually wants to find a way of funding anti-poaching programs in northern Malaysia. All right. So now she's starting to get thinking, how can I achieve this? And you can see that it just creates passion inside of her, something that she already loved. And I don't know whether it will go anywhere. It's still too early to say. But that's the kind of seed that you often see driving people. And, in almost every single case, you'll find that true entrepreneurs that build socially focused businesses, they start with something that was really annoying them. There's this concept in every problem lies an opportunity within its solution. So if you look around you and you see all of the problems in the world, we're surrounded by opportunities in finding solutions for those problems. And you can't solve every single problem, but you can solve one, right? And if each of us try to just focus on solving one specific problem, then, with 7+ billion people on the planet, eventually we would make some serious impact, right? Obviously, we
Right.
wouldn't need everybody to do it, but getting this mentality where, we start a snowball effect where more and more entrepreneurs start thinking in the right way, business is a risk. Every business is a risk. So isn't it better to build a business and take those risks about something that's really meaningful? And there's this kind of false logic that says, well, I will try to build a more sustainable business or once I'm financially independent. That's just insanity, because the false logic, of course, is that you can't become financially independent by building a business that is sustainably focused.
Right.
It's just complete madness, false logic. I mean, again, Malcolm Rand is the example here, but the only reason he was able to build his business was because it was sustainably focused. And that was at a time when people cared less. It was going up against one of the biggest companies on the planet and in one of the most uneco type business, models. So if he could achieve it then in that industry, I'm sure that the majority of the listeners today can find ways of achieving it with whatever product or service they're currently trying to build. Or if they're still trying to find a product or service to build, they'll actually find it far easier, not harder, to become successful by starting with a solid foundation.
Right.
I mean, just as a little thing on the side here, but one of my favorite quotes: "Every villain is a hero in his own mind."
Awesome.
Right? That was by what's his name, Tom Hiddleston, the guy that played Loki in the Marvel movies. Now, I love this movie, this quote, because actually what I realized was that the majority of business owners think they are a hero in their own mind. They think that because they have some basic motivation, which is I'm trying to provide for my family. And that's good. I'm not saying you shouldn't provide for your family, but at the end of the day, so are drug dealers. So are slave trade owners. You know, just because you're trying to provide for your family doesn't make you necessarily a good person, or what you're doing to achieve that isn't necessarily good. Right? There's
Right.
many people who've become a villain, and what we have to realize is that every single business on this planet currently is unsustainable and is having a negative impact. So we are all part of the problem right now, every single one of us, whether we like it or not. And so the only way that we stop being part of the problem is when we start becoming more conscious and start trying to find better and better solutions to try and systematically work for our business to reduce our impact, to improve our ability to recycle, to take responsibility for the damage that our personal business does, and to restore. to say, yes, no, I'm not the one who is generating the carbon dioxide by burning the coal in the local power plant, but I can take responsibility for offsetting that by planting more trees.
Awesome.
It's not that difficult. It really isn't, and it doesn't actually cost that much. It's such a microscopic cost of doing business in reality. Most people just don't even begin to realize how easy it actually is.
Awesome, and this is all this whole like superhero thing. I mean, it's making a lot of sense. The more and more that you explain it, like because I flipped through your book for this. I only had a couple of minutes before we talked today, but I kind of flipped through and I saw stuff about like Elon Musk and about like we all have kind of enemies to overcome, like internal and external. But then when you kind of explain it with the villain stuff, it's like I mean, yeah, usually like any kind of villain in any kind of sort of comic book movie, like they're usually like out for revenge or they have some sort of like silly plot, and you're like, why are they like just like pushing so hard? Why is like Darth Vader or Biff Tannen and whoever like why are they just like kind of pushing and just like doing this crazy thing more and more when maybe they should take a step back and realize, well, what does it all mean? What's my goal really, as opposed to just just more and more. And I really like how even though these villains, they've all somehow justified doing these kinds of actions the same way like a criminal or a drug dealer might do it. And so I mean that makes a lot of sense as far as like we all think we're a superhero and we might be, or chances are more likely we're a villain and we don't even realize it because that's just like we can't really see outside of ourselves. So ask ourselves what's important to me, what annoys me, and then what if money didn't exist. And we're starting to kind of run short on time here, but one thing I'm really
Yes.
curious about is to sort of narrow down this purpose. I mean, how do we get all those ideas? Because I mean, like, for example, how did your daughter come across this sort of this tiger problem? Like, is it just a matter of like being aware of the news coming in, or like how do you get these this constant stream of ideas so we can like pick up on one?
Well, I think, in her case, she didn't go actively seeking information to try and trigger an idea. She actually read the book cover to cover, um, and just the other day, and at the end of it, she put it down and she said, "I know what I want to do. I want to help the tigers." And it was just total clarity for her. She just read the book and that was it. She already knew. She didn't go out and do any research. She did research afterwards to figure out the specifics of, well, how can I best help the tigers? Which tigers am I going to focus on? Because obviously there's tigers around the world. So which group of tigers am I going to put my efforts and focus on? And what's the most effective way of helping that specific group of tigers? And so she started doing her research around the specifics. But in terms of the actual idea, I mean, I think all of us, hopefully, in the Western world at least, these days have sufficient knowledge around us to be aware of many of the problems. And for some people, that may be the chemicals in the cleaning products that they're using or the cosmetics that they're using, or it could be the transport that they're currently driving, or, it could be some social project. I was speaking to somebody else recently who we were discussing these ideas, and they said, I'm really annoyed by the lack of understanding and acceptance towards mental health issues, right? And so she suddenly became, what I want to do? I really want to try and help those with mental health issues be more accepted and understood in the community. So she had a very social vision. So all of us, I think, and there's nothing to say that this is going to be the same one for your entire life. Again, just go back to Elon Musk. There's no, you can have multiple different purposes, but for the average person, I think just starting with one. No one can find a solution for everything, but everybody can find a solution to something.
Awesome. So is it reasonable to assume that this whole process of like landing on the right idea, it might take time, it might take 6 or 12 months, and it's just a matter of kind of everyone should just kind of keep that in mind when they, like you said, if when they wash their clothes, when they drive their car, just kind of be thinking in terms of, could there be a better way? Does this annoy me? Is that reasonable to assume that it just might take a while?
Yeah, I mean, I think for many people, they kind of already know if they're honest with themselves. What I tend to find, though, is that often fear blocks us in making that decision. And, for many people I've spoken to, there's this kind of subconscious thought pattern that is, well, who am I to be able to make a difference in this field? Right. And so they look at any problem and it feels overwhelming because they can't see the solution to the problem in a single glance. And therefore they feel overwhelmed by it, and they feel like they're insignificant or inadequate to make a difference in that area. And that's really sad, because I think we just need to understand that while we might be one individual, maybe while we may not have all of the solutions, none of us do when we start out, right? Some of us might have a bit of an inkling of an idea about how we may be able to address the problem, but many don't. It's only having the belief in ourselves and the overwhelming desire to make a difference that gives us the strength to set out on the journey and collect the people around us that have the collective intelligence and wisdom to be able to figure out the solutions and, basically solve these problems that we're trying to address. Just another quick quote, but Gerard Way once said, "All the best heroes are ordinary people who make themselves extraordinary."
Awesome. We didn't all start out that way. There's always the origin story, right?
Exactly. This is the thing. If you look at the hero's journey, most heroes do not start out as, there's obviously exceptions in Greek god mythology, etc. But the majority of heroes started out as ordinary people with ordinary lives. And there's this phase of resistance where they begin to hear the calling to set out on the path of some kind of mission. And there's this process where they resist that calling and they doubt themselves, they doubt their abilities. This is kind of normal. So while you're right, I think there's a process of allowing things to sit in. Often I would encourage people just to simply make the leap and take the step of just simply saying, you know what, I'm not sure whether this is exactly right, but it's a bigger purpose than what I'm currently doing now. So therefore it's probably a good step. And then I can refine from there.
Awesome.
The basic rule of thumb is just make sure that your mission is bigger than yourself.
Good stuff. Make sure your mission's bigger than yourself. Go for that bigger purpose. Make the leap. And if you're doubting yourself, you're probably on the right track. If there's something that you should be doing but you're not doing, you're probably in that refusing of the call to action phase in that hero's journey. So everyone should go ahead and take action. So you mentioned your book a few times, and like the things about like fear blocking us, which is also in the book, and cool stuff like that. So can you tell everyone where to find the book, as well as any other websites you feel like mentioning today?
Yep. So you can find the book on Amazon, not too surprisingly. It's available in print and in Kindle format. And the other website to mention would be socialpreneur.tv. And socialpreneur.tv is a bit of a beginning project to bring together a lot of these ideas, and there'll be more information about the book on that website.
Awesome. And then so socialpreneur.tv, and then if someone's on Amazon searching for it, can you give us the exact title? That way they know that they're searching the right thing to find it.
Yes, it's again how to become a superhero, build a better business, and help save the world.
Awesome. How to Become a Superhero, Build a Better Business, and Help Save the World by Leon J. So make sure that you guys, if you're on Amazon, search for that, and also go to socialpreneur.tv to check out everything that Mr. Leon J is up to and will be up to in the future, as far as, little stuff like saving the world here and there in his spare time. So I hope you guys listening had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. And make sure to go to socialpreneur.tv and check out everything that Leon J is doing. So thanks so much, Mr. Leon, for stopping by and sharing what you had to share with us today.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks again.
Please subscribe, rate, and review our show at robertplank.com/iTunes, and like us on Facebook at robertplankshow.com.